All right, good morning. Hello and welcome, my friends, to Minnesota Gardening Live. I am outside. I have a meeting with a client here in a little bit, and so we're doing this from a park in Minneapolis, so it's great to see everybody. So today we are going to do a couple things. One, we are going to talk about powdery mildew. I've got multiple questions about powdery mildew over the course of the last couple of weeks. And powdery mildew is we're going to talk about, and then we're going to answer questions that are coming up. I found that one of the best ways between MinnesotaGardening.com, so our website, and then also there's a Minnesota MM Gardeners Facebook group that has a lot of pictures and questions and things on there. And I love everybody, but there's also a lot of terrible information. So we're going to go through and talk about a lot of the questions that are on there as well. So that's our plan for today. So we're going to start here with a couple photos. So here is a photo of a peony. So this is powdery mildew. So powdery mildew really, especially as dry as it's been, powdery mildew has a tendency to thrive in drier, hotter conditions. So a lot of people are starting to see it this year, and it always fluctuates. Some years when it's cooler and wetter, powdery mildew will affect some plants a lot more. And then other years when it's hot and dry, like it's been this year, or especially hot and wet, like it is in some places in the upper Midwest, it will go really, really crazy. So this is, so a peony is generally very susceptible to powdery mildew. So the powdery mildew specifically is that it's a fungus, and it's that white powdery substance that you see. It looks like it's been dusted with, flour or something like that, baby powder, that kind of thing. And so it has that white powdery substance on there. And so that's what the powdery mildew fungus is. And so some plants are just very susceptible to it. So if we zoom in here, you can see how this white powdery substance, and then there's these little deader spots on the plant, and that is where the fungus is really emanating from. And so that's the main locus of where the fungus is starting, and then it kind of spreads from there. So this is dead tissue on the peony leaf, but it's not going to kill the plant. Peonies generally, especially older fashioned type peonies, there have been a lot of breeding lately to ones that are resistant to powdery mildew and things like that. But it is something that's not going to kill the plant. It's not going to really hurt it there whatsoever, but it will definitely be noticeable. It doesn't look great. Some plants may lose their leaves and go from there. So we've got that is one. We'll pull up another plant that's really susceptible to powdery mildew. This is what I've gotten a lot of questions about so far. This is a plant called Monarda. So you can always identify Monarda. It's a native plant to the upper Midwest, so it is just natively susceptible to powdery mildew, and it won't die from it. It will be okay. But Monarda, you can always identify Monarda. There's a little trick for it. Monarda is in the mint family, and it always has square stems. And so it's got a happy little purple flower on top, red flowers sometimes. And it can get really tall, get 5 to 6 feet tall also. But mostly you'll see it in the 2 to 3 feet range with pink and purple flowers. But they've always got the square stems. And so this is what powdery mildew looks like on here. And this is a pretty bad case of it. But and powdery mildew also, just so you know, you can see that right in there. You can see the square stems on the Monarda right there. So you can see where that goes back and forth. Didn't even expect to see that. But powdery mildew can also spread to other plants. So there will be other plants that are not susceptible to powdery mildew, and they will, it'll get on the leaves and it won't cause any damage. Same as the other one. So, and then the last one I want to show you here. And there's a chat function on here. You can ask questions if you've got any. This is the case. This is clematis. So some people call it clematis, depending on how fancy you are. And so clematis has, it's not usually super susceptible to it, but it will definitely get a light powdery mildew on here. But this is a picture of clematis, and you can see it there. Some clematis are fall blooming, some are spring blooming. But again, powdery mildew rarely ever get so bad that it damages the plant. Like I said, some years it can be better than other years, and action steps on this is just don't do anything. Just leave it alone, let powdery mildew run its course, and it will be fine. If you're overly concerned about it, it has a tendency to build up in the soil, and so if I should get out of the way so you aren't shining on my noggin there. Nope, that was really no better. But with this powdery mildew, just leave it alone. If you are overly concerned about it, you want to try and minimize its overwintering ability, because it will stay from year to year. What you can do is take and get down here and see if this gets a little better. But what you can do is take, and especially with like peonies and monarda and those kinds of friends, you can take those and cut off the foliage once it dies back. So wait until it dies back in the fall when everything happens there. And once it dies back in the fall, that powdery mildew fungus is still alive and it's on there. It's not taking the nutrients from the plant anymore, but it is still on there, and that's how it overwinters and starts the cycle for the next year. You're definitely not going to get rid of it all, and it's really probably not going to help. So it's not anything that I would highly recommend even doing or wasting your time with, because what those especially peonies and monarda does a lot of really good things for overwintering insects. So a lot of our native bees and wasps will drill into the stem of the monarda, and they will lay their eggs in there, and the eggs overwinter within that stem. And so it's a really cool thing where they are hanging out in there, and they make it through the winter, and they do that. So if you have any questions, again, make sure to use the chat, and we will roll from there. So now we are going to answer questions and just talk about some things that have come up over the course of the last week. And before I get into this, I just want to say, like, this is our second time doing this. So if you have any, use the comment section, tell me how if there are questions, if there's a format that works for you, if there are different things that you'd like to see happening, anything that you'd like, any suggestions, ideas, I would love to hear them from you. So we're gonna scroll back over here, and so this is minnesotagardening.com. So this is our website. So you can join the Minnesota Gardening community at any time. You can join us live on Fridays at 9:30 a.m. We're going to try and do this every Friday. But the Minnesota Gardening community is free for you to join. You just go to minnesotagardening.com, and there will be a join us link up here, or you can come in here to the Minnesota Gardening community and join on there and ask any questions you've got there. We also have Minnesota Gardening Club, which we have a lot more personal attention there. We have a lot of different places where people can ask questions, and a lot more opportunities to do that at that point and get direct attention from me and a bunch of other stuff. So minnesotagardening.com is how we pay for all this. So if you, Minnesota Gardening Club is how we pay for this, and it's $10 a month. So if you want to join, we'd love to have you there. Here's Minnesota Gardening community. So here is a question that we had. This is what brought it forward from Monarda, from a Minnesota Gardening Club member. So this is a different photo of Monarda from a member, and so you can see how the powdery mildew is on there and what is happening with that. Had another question from a member asking about, they're building a new house, and asked about trees. And so landscape tree discussion, we're hopefully building a house next summer and want to put in a tree in approximate location. This picture, my husband is hoping to have an open spreading type tree that is strong enough we don't have to worry about limbs frequently dropping on the house. I'm looking at you, Cottonwood. And so this is the schematic, the drawing for the house, and this is where it's going to go through there. And I believe it's on the south side, if I recall correctly. And so there are, as you're picking new trees for your house, whether you are, if you have any ash trees on your property right now, you need to get at least 2 or 3 new trees growing underneath those ash trees to get that rocking and rolling there, so that you have trees that are growing underneath. So when you have to take out your ash tree, that you have something that's already growing, and you can get a head start on those pieces. So that's one reason why you'd be planting trees. If you have open areas, plant a tree, anything like that, just plant trees. And so make sure to be doing that. We have a big article at minnesotagardening.com that's available to everybody all about I've been invaded by little people. That's the cutest thing ever here. So back to trees. So with that, what I suggested, Emily had asked about ironwood, and ironwood is a great tree. It is a native tree to the upper Midwest. It has a lot of really, really great things that happen with it. And also with that, ironwoods are more of an ornamental tree. They don't get too big, so you won't get any shade. You won't have a ton of environmental assistance, I guess is the best way to say that, from the tree for shade in the summer or allowing sun through in the winter, that kind of thing. So I suggested a Kentucky coffee tree. So Kentucky coffee trees are native to the upper Midwest, not really to North Dakota, but through southern Minnesota, and they grow natively along riverbanks and that kind of thing. And so it's a really, really wonderful tree. And I highly recommend putting that wherever you can, because they're not planted very often, and so there aren't any disease problems. And we're going to do a big piece on Kentucky coffee trees because they have a really cool history, and the seed pods are amazing. So we're going to do that. But I suggested Kentucky coffee trees, suggested hickories, and all of the oaks. And so those are the three things that I would be planting right now in my garden to make the things that need some help and would do a really good job. So those are my suggestions for that. Also want to share, we went last weekend to the Iowa State Fair. My mom got inducted into the the Iowa 4-H Hall of Fame, and it was really awesome. But the Dahlia show was going on, so it was the last day of the Iowa State Fair, and they had the Dahlia show, so we got to see lots of gorgeous, just awesome dahlias. And I really love with dahlias, especially how they are able to have so many different forms and take on lots of different shapes. And I've got just a couple of photos here. I didn't take many of the dahlias. I didn't take many that whole weekend, which was kind of unfortunate. I'm going to grab these here. There we go. So this is the dahlia show, so they have tons of them. And I love dahlias, especially the smaller ones that have these really tight knit petals, and just how cool they look and the symmetry of the whole thing that they have. And so there were a lot of really, really great dahlias all through, and these are the winners, which I was kind of surprised. But these little pom-pom guys are my favorite. These big scraggly ones are also really cool, but there's just so many different shapes and sizes, and lots of fun stuff with dahlias. They are very, very cool. All right, next thing, this goes to Minnesota Gardeners. So this is a Facebook group, got a lot of folks, a lot of really great questions on here, a lot of really great answers from a lot of folks, a lot of really terrible answers from a lot of folks. But just wanted to walk through some of them with you here today. So this is from Deborah, and these are all public, so I'm not sharing anything that's a private kind of thing at all. But sprayed, having a lawn sprayed, keep the grass tall, and they say they cannot kill crabgrass. Also, I noticed increasing weeds in the pictures. Wondering why spraying isn't taking care of them. So we'll talk about a couple of these right here. So this is prostrate knotweed, and so it is a really difficult plant to control in your lawn. And so this goes on the fact of let's just not worry about weeds in lawns so much is a very good thing. So a lot of folks said that it's purslane. It's not purslane. It's a really hard weed to control. So it's got really, really small roots. So it's really easy to pull out, but there are lots of them. So there are lots and lots and lots of them. So this is a tough plant to control. And if you are really concerned about killing weeds in the grass and you want to do that, the best time to do that is at September 15th to October 1st. And so in that window where the weeds they take in the chemical and remove them down to the root system, and so they kill off at that point. So it's that's the best time to do that. This is a photo of nightshade. So if you have this plant on your landscape, we used to say that like if you ate one berry, you would die instantly kind of thing, but it's definitely not that poisonous. It'll give you a nasty stomachache, and it's a really bad thing. And if you eat enough of it, for sure you can't die of it. But it's not that poisonous. But the interesting thing, or an interesting thing about nightshade is it's in the same family as tomatoes, potatoes, peppers in that whole family, and they get flowers that are very similar to potatoes on them. You get little dark berries that turn red eventually. Baby peppers, you kind of see the similarities, especially between peppers and nightshade and these leaves right here. But this is nightshade. It's a weed. It kind of does a vining thing and grows all along the grass. And so just make sure to pull that out, especially if you have little kids around, and take it from there. All right, next one is a plant that people wanted help identifying. This is one of my favorite plant names, and favorite plants is native to the upper Midwest as well. And it's called, it's Chelone, Chelone, but commonly called turtlehead. And so it's a really, really fun plant to grow. And you can see in this one, this is looking straight at the flower. And so it's, you can definitely tell why it's called turtlehead on that one, because it's kind of got a lip that goes over the top, and it's a fun plant. So it's a really great native plant that you can plant. So it's turtlehead, and it works really, really great. All right, next question that would be really helpful to have answered for everybody is about, this has a whole series of questions, but the most important one here is about evergreens. And so these are Colorado Blue Spruce. And so Colorado Blue Spruce are interesting because you see this one over here on the left. Let's put it on the left for you as well. But this one on the left is really blue in color, and these two other ones are greenish bluish, and this one on the right is really less blue. And so with them, they are Colorado Blue Spruce are grown from seed. So most times you have trees that are grown from cuttings, and they take and they stick a rootstock and a stem together to make a new tree, and then it grows from there. That's the way the vast majority of anything that has a name to it. So even if it's a perennial, a grass, anything that generally has a name on it, it's a variety of something. So will grow from that type of propagation. So that's how you get more plants out of those. Colorado Blue Spruce, however, and I don't really know why, Colorado Blue Spruce is grown from seed. And so when you have things grown from seed, there's a ton of variation to it. And so you can see here all this variation. The Colorado Blue Spruce is something that shouldn't even be sold anymore because it's highly, highly susceptible to diseases. And so you can kind of see the variation in resistance to the diseases here. And so this is what's called needlecast. And so it's a fungus that grows on pretty much any blue spruce will get needlecast disease. And so it has, it's a fungus, and so it kills off the bottom plants. It accumulates in these bottom branches, so it'll start to kill off the bottom branches. You see how this one has more that have been killed off, and this one has some down here as well. As soon as you see branches dying on Colorado Blue Spruces, or pretty much any evergreen, make sure to cut them off and remove that fungal material from the plant. But once it starts, it's not going to stop. And so pretty much any Colorado Blue Spruce will get this over time. It grows slowly, and so it's a rough thing, and it's why we should not plant any Colorado Blue Spruce. So if you want a spruce, Black Hill Spruce is a great option. Those are native to the Midwest, and these are native to Colorado, and they're more higher elevations is where they are mostly successful through those areas. So we've got this piece. So the other questions were through here. Buckthorn is the perennial question on this in gardeners. So this is buckthorn. You can really tell buckthorn. You can look at the veins on the plant. So you can see how the veins go on this oblong ovate shape for the plant. So right now buckthorn has a lot of berries on it. I'll actually pull up a picture of that. Some last week. At least I thought I did. It's hard to find right now, so I can't get it. But they have blackberries that are on there, and they are what you can see right now. This is a question from the same person about these little bumps on. This is probably a volunteer hackberry tree. These come in hackberries are notorious for these little guys are called galls, and so they're little insects that bite, that lay an egg on the leaf, and then it forces the leaf to grow this kind of a cancerous type material around here, and so it protects and houses that egg, and then once the egg hatches, it has a little bit of food material in there, and then it burrows its way out, and it's gone. So all these light spots on here are all where galls are hanging out, and they are not a problem. Don't do anything about them. They'll totally be fine. And then the question as to what this is, we've got some nightshade in there. So you see that little red berry in there. So that's nightshade, but this is all great native wild grapevine and some buckthorn that's going in there. So it's kind of a mess on that space. Two more that we have here for everyone. And again, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. This question about hydrangeas, and so pruning hydrangeas and what should happen with everything here. So this question was around first these tall, they didn't like these tall spots on the hydrangea, and you can absolutely cut those back whenever you want. It's great to take those off now and make a bouquet out of them. Anything that's tall and scraggly, we generally say that 95% of pruning should be done in the winter, just 5% during the summer and during the growth season. And with that, these are all things that can totally come off if they bother you or if they're an issue, and you can put them in a vase and they'll be great for you. But the big questions they had was about these guys down here. So this hydrangea grew bigger than they expected. So always make sure to grab the right plant for the right place. Don't put things too close together, because in 3 to 4 years, they will absolutely be overrunning each other. But this hydrangea is growing over this dianthus down here, and they were wondering when is the right time to move the dianthus, and the best answer to that is now. So the very best time for moving and transplanting and dividing the vast majority of perennials is in the fall. So between August 15th and September 15th, October 1st at the very, very latest. But you can dig those up, this dianthus, you can dig around it, you can divide it in 3 or 4 new dianthus and plant them in a different spot. So those will work. So right now we've got a couple different posts on Ministry Gardening about moving plants and dividing, so you can grab those there. But that is that case. And the last one we're going to talk about today is this anachronistic bloom. So it's a magnolia that is blooming in the fall. So I'm sure you may or may not know that vast majority of magnolias are spring blooming magnolias. And so magnolia is an ornamental tree generally in our area that has just these gorgeous big blossoms every single spring. And it's not native to here, so I don't highly recommend planting magnolias, but I have one in my front yard and I love it to death. Its name's Leonard, and it's amazing. And so, but there are some things that are blooming now that our weather is going absolutely crazy and not following the normal patterns that everything has evolved through and everything has grown up in. It's throwing some things out of whack. And so we have things like lilacs, forsythias, and magnolias are sometimes now throwing out new blossoms in the fall. And so I had my magnolia was blooming a couple times in the summer. Now I've got a couple blossoms on it again here. But this is something that historically hasn't really happened. Lilacs were a little more susceptible to blooming sometimes in the fall, especially if you get further north. If there's a hot, if it's cooler and then you get a hot stretch, that could sometimes toss out some lilacs, and that was perfectly normal, but it's happening a lot more often nowadays. And so with that, it's just bloom. There's nothing to do with it. Just enjoy it and embrace it. And make sure to plant as many plants as you can to support pollinators and support local ecosystems and combat climate change. So those are the things that I have for you today, my friends. Thank you very much for being here with me to talk about plants. I chose a park that has just tons of kids, and so it's fun to see them and watch them rolling around. But if you, we post these on YouTube, so if you check out our Minnesota Garden YouTube channel with that, but also you can join us every Friday at 9:30 a.m. at minnesotagardening.com. Just go to Minnesota Gardening and click on the live button so you can see you there. And if you're a new homeowner, we have a great webinar for you that is a class talking all about landscape lessons for homeowners. Recorded class that will answer any questions that you have through there. So I can post for that with this. So if you have any questions or you have things you want me to talk about, just get in touch. Go to minnesotagardening.com and send me a message there. So thank you so much and have a great rest of your day. Thanks for being here.